national objectives, all the way from the president intent on down. Because I, too, take my rudder steer, if you will, my guidance and direction from the President of the United States. And in his national security strategy, it is pretty clear of what my approach should be, how we can be able to address our shared objectives or shared values, especially in democracy and freedom and rights of the people.
Yeah, we back. Yeah, we back. Now, today's going to be one of my more serious videos. Man, General Michael Langley back in the headlines. Now, this time, the New York Post, right? Now the conversation has left our circles. Now it has reached the New York Post, right? So now they're trying to mainstream the conversation. Now, take a look at this headline. The terror networks are thriving in Africa, and they could pose a threat to the United States. A top general warns. Now, wow, where do I begin? Now, before I get started, just last night, I dropped a video on the Patreon, exclusive video entitled, Donald Trump Sends a Representative to Burkina Faso. In that video, I reacted to Donald Trump sending an envoy to the AES, especially on the heels of the tension between the captain and the general. Now, we got this headline coming out in the news. That's crazy. Now, go to the Patreon, join the Patreon, and gain access to several videos that have never been uploaded to YouTube. Now, let's get into these articles, man. The terror groups in the region, which include ISIS in the Sahel and Al-Qaeda-aligned JNIM, have recently set their sights on expanding west, the general explained, which could provide them easier access to the United States. Time out. Bro, this is so reckless, especially the fact that it's in the New York Post. Time out, man. Now, this is what the New York Post is quoting Langley as having said. I never heard him say it out of his own mouth. I didn't see it. I didn't see a clip. The New York Post said they heard Langley say this, right? Now, if Langley said this, you got to come out and clarify what you mean, brother, because this is a very provocative and problematic statement, especially because the average American citizen who doesn't understand the dynamics of the region, when they hear something like the terror groups in Africa are going to come attack the United States, that sounds crazy, bro. When you say things like that, the Pentagon gets activated, right? The Pentagon starts putting money aside for military operations when you say things like that. When you say the terror groups in Africa are going to attack the United States, bro, that sounds crazy provocative. That sounds crazy reckless. And due to the fact that the average American citizen who doesn't really understand the dynamics of the region, when they read this article, they're going to be galvanized in support of whatever military operation or military action is taken to neutralize the said threat. Because you said there are terror groups that are going to come attack the homeland. That sounds crazy, bro. Anyway, let's continue. One of the terrorists' new objectives is gaining access to the West African coast, Langley said. If they secure access to the coast, they can finance their operations through smuggling and human trafficking and arms trading. This puts not just African nations at risk, but also increases the chance of threats of reaching the United States shores. Langley, brother. Bro, this is so reckless. Let's continue. Langley noted that JNIM, which has expanded fourfold since 2022, is of particular concern to the United States. We are keeping a good eye on this because they could have the capacity to attack the homeland. Bro. We've heard these phrases before, man. My man Langley said the booty scratchers in the bush are gonna attack the United States. This is crazy. Doesn't it sound like other phrases we've heard in the past, right? Oh, such and such nation is harboring terrorists. We gotta go intervene, right? Such and such nation got weapons of mass destruction. We gotta intervene, right? Such and such nation, we need to uphold democracy and the rule of law. We gotta intervene, right? Now, 2025, Langley came with the remix. They're going to attack the homeland, right? Langley featuring the Pentagon, dropping a remix. They're going to attack the homeland. That's the name of the album, right? That's just crazy, brother. This is so crazy. This is so crazy. Where do I begin, brothers? Where do I begin? This is so serious. Now, let's continue. In a massive blow to counterterrorism operations, the United States military withdrew from Niger last year after the government ended an agreement that allowed American troops to operate out of the country. Langley indicated that in the months since the withdrawal, the United States has not been able to keep as close of an eye on the terror groups in the region. Now, that sounds like to me They want to get their drone base back, right? We lost our drone base. We invested $100 million, however many millions of dollars into that drone base. We got kicked out, and now they're saying that ever since they got kicked out, we've been having trouble, monitoring the terrorism in the region. Now, where do I begin? Wow, this is so reckless. Now, Langley is framing the scenario saying that the terrorists that we see on the motorbikes, the terrorists that barely have the ability to hold on to a city or a town or urban center for longer than a few days, right? He's saying that these terrorists are going to cross over the ocean, right? Cross the Atlantic, reach the shores of the United States, and pose a threat to the lives of American citizens. That is crazy. This is so crazy because the average American citizen who doesn't know anything about anything, right? Now you got the New York Post talking about Niger and Burkina Faso. This is crazy. Now they're associating these nations with a threat to national security, right? These nations are now a threat to national security. And I'm not saying these guys aren't a problem, but they're more so a problem for Africans on the continent. These guys operate in the outskirts, right? In the bush, in the rural areas. These guys are not going to hop on no boats or hop on no planes and come to Washington, D.C. No, they're going to attack the next village over before they attack an American city. But when you frame the narrative in this way, you now give the Pentagon justification to begin drafting up military operations to defend the homeland, because you said these terror groups are going to attack the homeland. So now the Pentagon naturally is going to take certain defensive measures to defend the homeland against the hostile threats. And of course, the American citizens are going to be galvanized in support because you, as a 4-star general, in their eyes, you have the credibility and the inside knowledge of what's going on in the region, right? The average pedestrian, they don't really know what's going on. So if you say it's terror groups going to attack the United States on the motorbikes, they're going to believe you, bro. They're going to believe you. They're going to vote in support of it. And that's what it is. And then Africans going to be dying. And by that time, you're already going to be retired. You're going to have a fat bank account, right? Your family going to be living lovely, right? And they're going to bury you in Arlington and everything going to be sweet, right? But the Africans on the continent, the family on the continent, they're going to have to deal with the mess that's made, that's left behind, just like what happened in Libya. And that is what's so disingenuous about this whole narrative, right? Because not once in this article in the New York Post did they mention the origins of the instability in the region. Not once did they mention the fall of Libya. The fall of Libya that led to all the weapons and the terrorists spreading all across the region. And how did the fall of Libya occur? That was a failure of United States foreign policy. That was a failure of French foreign policy, right? So now, due to your past failures in foreign policy, yes, that region is now a hotbed of terrorism and instability. But not once did you mention that. But now when you frame the narrative in this way, you give justification to intervene in the region once again, when it was the fact that you intervened before is the reason why the region became, as you said, the epicenter of terrorism. And imagine how catastrophic it'll be for West Africa if what happened in Libya ends up spreading throughout the whole West Africa. Do you know how catastrophic that would be? And like I said, Langley, by that time, you're going to be retired. Your grandkids going to be going to high school, driving Mercedes-Benz, and the family on the continent, they're going to be dying. That's why we have to be deliberate and cautious of what we say, because your testimonies have the power to influence United States foreign policy. Your testimonies have the power to influence the Pentagon and United States military action. So we have to be cautious in what we say. We have to be cautious with what we say. And of course, to the average American citizen, they're going to see you as a black man. They're going to be like, man, he got to be telling the truth. He talking about Africa. He wouldn't lie on Africa, right? So you have to understand how your credibility can be weaponized, and you have to be, cautious in that, brother. And I've been watching some of your interviews and some of your, press releases, and you have to make the connection between the collapse of Libya and how all those weapons from Gaddafi's military after his government collapsed got spread all throughout the region. All those terrorist groups got spread all throughout the region, hopped over the border, right? You have to make the connection between the Western intervention in Libya to the terrorism going on today. If you don't make that connection, then I don't think you're being fully honest, my brother. You're not being fully honest. You have to make the connection, because you can only move forward and make better decisions if you acknowledge the past mistakes. And I never see y'all acknowledge the past mistakes, right? The reason why it's so much terrorism going on in the region is because of the mess that you made. It's because of United States foreign policy. So now the brothers over on the continent, the militaries on the continent, they got to go risk their life and clean up the mess that you made. They got to go risk their life and dodge bullets by the terrorists because you decided to destabilize the whole entire region. Not you, Langley, in particular, but the United States and her allies at large, right? Those who gave the green light to conduct those operations, right? We are now dealing with the after effects of that. And if you don't acknowledge that, then to me, I'm always going to view it as some level of dishonesty. Now, on my Patreon, I'm going to go in deep on another angle of this topic, right? Take a look up on the screen. Evidence has emerged that foreign fighters, particularly from Arab countries, are now active within the Islamic State in West Africa's combat units. One such individual was captured in a propaganda video as part of a team that attacked a Nigerian military brigade in Damboa. Now, on that topic, I might hit the Patreon. Listen, link in the description, pinned comment at the top, join the Patreon family. Now, there are reports suggesting that there are individuals from foreign countries overseas, right? The Middle East and parts of Asia and North Africa that are leaving their countries, that are traveling to West Africa to engage in terrorism. That's what's circulating. And apparently there have actually been some individuals that were arrested in Nigeria for engaging in terrorism and also recently attacking a military base about a couple weeks ago. So we have guys leaving their country, right? We have dirty booty scratchers leaving their country, right? A bunch of camel riders leaving their country, coming to attack the black man and his family for no reason, right? Because according to them, they want to establish their own sovereign state in West Africa. I don't know why, but this is what they want to do. That's why they fighting the governments. They want to establish some type of caliphate. I don't know, brother. I don't know. But this is what they doing, right? So you got guys leaving their country from different parts of the world, traveling to Africa. I don't know how they getting there. I don't know if they traveling through North Africa, if they're coming on the boat, they coming through the plane, commercial flight, but they are traveling from their country because they want to engage in the jihad that's going on in West Africa. This is so crazy, my brother. What did we do to deserve this, my brothers? Now, here's my thing, right? If you remember, the president in Syria, as we already know, former Al-Qaeda commander who had a $10 million bounty on his head for the United States government, right? Now, they done cleaned him up. He used to be a terrorist off in the bush. Now he's a diplomat. Now he's a statesman, right? Now he has a suit. Now he's no longer on a motorbike. Now he's in a presidential vehicle, right? Shaking hands with Emmanuel Macron, right? Politicking and interfacing with President Donald Trump. You know, keep in mind, former Al-Qaeda commander who had a $10 million bounty on his head from the Pentagon, from the United States government. Now, he is a respected head of state interfacing with other heads of state, a former Al-Qaeda commander. Langley just told us that Al-Qaeda is going to attack the homeland and is causing havoc in West Africa, right? But a former Al-Qaeda commander, a big dog in the organization, is shaking hands with the Western governments. Now, brothers, one thing we have to understand is that even though the Western governments and the terrorist organizations, they may say that they are enemies, right? Out in the open, in the public, right? The terrorists say, oh, death to the West. And the Western government say, we're going to come destroy the terrorists. But we have to understand that even though they position themselves to be enemies, both of them share some common ideologies. There are certain things where they both agree. There are certain areas where they are both on one accord, and we have to analyze those things. Number one, the Western governments and the terrorist organizations, they both stand against the AES. When it comes to Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, those governments in particular, both of them want to see regime change in those governments. When it comes to the West, they want to see regime change because they want access to the gold, the uranium. They want to set up their drone base back again in Niger, right? When it comes to the terrorists, they want to control territory. They want to be able to tax the civilians. They want to dominate the territory and establish Sharia law. When it comes to the West and the terrorist organizations, another area that they both agree upon is they want these militaries to remain weak and unable to properly defend themselves, right? They don't want them to be able to have access to certain weapons and diversify their partnerships. Number one, the West wants to be able to establish their military bases in the area. So they don't want you getting too strong. And the terrorists, they want your military to be weak because they want to be able to expand unchallenged. They want to get more territory. And if you are strengthening your military, that's going to hinder the jihad, right? So that's another area. The West and the terrorist organizations, they both are on one accord. Another area, the West and the terrorist organizations are both on one accord. They both stand against the ideology of Pan-Africanism, right? The West, they don't want Pan-Africanism because they don't want the formation of African military defense coalitions and things like that. They don't want to be kicked out of the military bases. They don't want their companies to be placed at risk because then they might not have access to the minerals and the resources. When it comes to the terrorist organizations, they are against Pan-Africanism because they believe that is like secular. They believe that is like against, Islam and things like that. You got to be Islam first. You can't be African first, right? That's against Sharia law, right? We're going to cut off your hand, right? So both of them stand against the ideology of Pan-Africanism, of us unifying and defending ourselves across blocks and coalitions. They don't want that. They want us to remain weak and fragmented so they can exploit our divisions, right? Both the Western governments and the terrorist organizations, they both play upon the ethnic divisions in the region. They both play divide and conquer in the region, right? So when it comes to Pan-Africanism, they view that as a threat to their interests, right? I know it's crazy, right? The booty scratchers on the motorbike, the terrorists, and the white men down in Washington, they both agree on many things. And don't be surprised, right? Don't be surprised if God forbid, I'm not wishing this, right? But let's say one of the nations in the AES in the Sahel gets overran by terrorists the same way Syria got overran by the former Al-Qaeda commander. Don't be surprised when you see these same Western heads of state that said they were fighting terrorism. Don't be surprised when you see them shaking that guy's hand, right? Of inviting him to Paris. Don't be surprised, man. Don't be surprised. The precedent has already been set. We've seen them take a former terrorist and put him in a suit, put him in a tailored suit, and then say that this is a diplomat. This is his excellency, right? We've seen them do it. So don't be surprised when they do it again, right? That's the reality. So as much as they say they're against each other, right? The terrorists love to cosplay as, oh yeah, we are standing against the West. We are anti-West. And the West, they love to cosplay as if they're fighting terrorism. But as you can see, when it comes to personal interests, they agree on many things, right? But just for different reasons, right? They want the same thing, but for different reasons. When it comes to the West, they want to be able to, get rich and loot the country. When it comes to the terrorists, they want to, establish Sharia law, right? They want to establish their own, caliphate, whatever. And both the Western governments and the terrorist organizations, they are both against the AES. The Western governments are against them because they view them as a hostile entity serving as an obstacle for their interest and influence in the region. The terrorist organizations hate them because they view them as not following the doctrines of, Islam and things like that, right? You're not supposed to be a Pan-Africanist. You're not supposed to be a nationalist. You're not supposed to be engaging in secular activity. You're supposed to engage in jihad, right? So the West and the terrorist organizations, they are both standing in opposition to the regimes currently in place in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, right? Both of them are actively trying to undermine those regimes, even though they claim to be fighting against each other, but they're really, behind the scenes, really working towards the same outcome for different reasons. But anyways, man, I'm not going to be here too long, man. It's your boy Nefakari Desaline. Sign up to that Patreon, man. We dropped an excellent video last night. As you can see, Donald Trump sends a representative to Burkina Faso. Go check out my reaction on that one. Yes, indeed, man. Yes, indeed. Join the Patreon family. And you already know on the Patreon, that's where I'm going to drop that video about them foreign fighters, right? We got these foreigners. We have these booty scratchers coming from their country. Could you imagine leaving your country to go engage in terrorism in some other man's country? This is unbelievable what the black man got to deal with. This is crazy. But anyway, we're going to talk about that on the Patreon. And that's a very sensitive topic. We got the white man and we got the Arab booty scratcher giving us problems, man. This is crazy. This is truly crazy, And that's why, like I said, man, that's why we got to stand on Pan-Africanism, right? Anybody coming to my comment section trying to come in with some religious supremacy, you getting blocked. Don't play with me like that. Don't play with me like that, right? Don't come into my comment section on no religious supremacy. Go talk to them terrorists in the Sahel that's leaving their country to go engage in terrorism in the Sahel. Go lecture them. Don't come into my comment section talking nonsense. I ain't having that. It's Pan-African business over here. Anyway, it's your boy Nefakari Desaline back in the Billy, yes indeed. Cash App in the description. Join the Patreon, NTD 1814. Support the album, Sahel 1816. Go to my homepage, go to my playlist section. Enjoy the album, and I'm gone. Peace. Told me she loved me and said that it's real. So independent, ain't signing no deal. Feel like a king and I'm up in Cap Henry. I'm in the citadel, top of the hill. Trying to run up and we let off a cannon. Secret location, I'm keeping it sealed. You ain't retaliate, Franco Medina. Came to the country and he got killed. You ain't retaliate, Rafi Mans. Thought you was law, thought you was real. Didn't even want to come pick up the body. Had your man locked up, he died in the cell. Up at the palace, I'm throwing a party. Right on the south and I'm giving them hell. And my little shorty, she looking exotic. African features, she casting a spell. Run to the check like I work on my fitness. Wake up each morning and handle my business. Say that she love me, she want my genetics. Wanna get married and make it official. Wanna get married and have all my babies. Up in the city, I'm riding Mercedes. Up in the city, they treat me like royalty. Feeling like Dolph, talking about lords. Spreading my wings and I had to get fly. Up in the top, an incredible vibe. Came from the bottom, I'm up in the sky. Gave one look and said, baby, you fine. Wake up each morning and handle my business. They just be talking, you see me, I live. Ride on my enemies, sounding like thunder. 1804, got that shit in my spirit. 1804 when I step in the building. 1804, and that's word of my mother. Rock my women and die for my brother. Never gon' fall when I'm deep under pressure. Tell them we back and they better accept it. Move like a king, every step is divine. Ride on my enemies with no exception. Taking revenge and I'm taking what's mine. Pour up a drink and it's time that we toast. Watching my back, keep my enemies close. Only the family, I stick with my brothers. Cannon's position outside of the coast. Heavy artillery for the protection. Move like a general, stick to the code. Feel like a king when I'm up in the north. Beautiful women, they trying to get chose. Launch an invasion all over the south. Capture the capital with all my woes. Look at my energy and my demeanor. Dripping that ice and that's head to my toes. Lately I'm flexing all on the Americans. Flexing my muscle on missing my road. Just got a carriage just coming from London. Boy, that shit cash, I ain't taking no loans. Boy, that shit cash, that's fresh on the boat. Enemy know I got millions in gold. Enemy know I got choppers and cannons. How did I do it? They can't understand it. How did I do it? It's cause I'm relentless. Call me King Harry, my name is cemented. Call me King Harry, I'm up in the palace. Call me King Harry, I'm raising the status.